Thank you very much, sir, for coming on our program, the platform. I hope you can hear me, sir.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for coming on our program, the platform. I'll just introduce you formally. His Excellency, His Highness Sanusi Lamido Sanusi was the 14th Emir of Kano. Prior to his ascension as Emir of Kano, he served as the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria from 2009 to 2014 under the presidency of Umaru Yar'Adua and his successor, President Goodluck Jonathan. In this position, Sanusi won the prestigious international award of Central Banker of the Year. During his tenure as CBN governor, he carried out extensive reforms. He carried out these reforms in a bid to overcome the vested interest attacking the Nigerian financial sector. Sanusi Lamido's blueprint for the reform in the banking sector is centered around 4 pillars, which include enhancing the quality of banks, establishing financial stability, enabling healthy financial sector evolution, and ensuring that the financial sector contributes to the real economy. He's an ardent speaker on subjects such as banking, politics, religion, and society. He's also a recipient of several notable awards, including the National Award for Commander of the Order of the Niger CON, Nigeria, one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine 2011. So, sir, first question I want to ask you is, you recently launched a challenge focusing on the 4th and 5th Sustainable Development Goals of quality education and gender equality, respectively. Nigeria's profile in these areas are dismal, and it appears the government alone cannot salvage the situation. In what ways can the private sector bring its weight to bear in terms of achieving the SDGs for Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much, and let me say how pleased and honored I am to be part of this esteemed group of Nigerians speaking on the 60th anniversary of our independence. Well, as you know, I'm one of the United Nations Secretary General's advocates for SDGs. And every time I look at these goals, I try to say to myself, if we were to focus on 2 or 3 goals, even though all the goals are interrelated, which ones do I think have the maximum impact? We look at a country like Nigeria and many LDCs. My sense is that the focus on the education of the girl child and the place of the woman are the most critical sustainable development goals we need to focus on. If you educate a girl child, you deal with a number of issues. You deal with the opportunities you give to rise out of poverty. You deal with intergenerational poverty. You deal with mortality. You deal with nutrition. You deal with education of the child, because the children of educated women are more likely to be educated than the children of those who did not go to school. You deal with water and sanitation and so on. So the single silver bullet for me that goes to the heart of underdevelopment and poverty is educating the girl child and providing her with an opportunity to rise out of poverty. The second thing is we've got to look at our attitude towards women in general as a country, and this is something that cuts across Nigeria, north and south, and unfortunately it's something that seems to affect not just the uneducated but even those who have gone to school, because I have seen a number of men who have gone to university, who are graduates, who are working, and who do not have any kind of regard for the rights of their wives or the rights of their daughters. As a country, we need to understand that without giving the respect and without caring or without respecting the rights of more than half of our population, we undermine ourselves. We bring ourselves backwards. We do not provide them with opportunity to actualize themselves, and we deal with other issues. We deal with issues around domestic violence. We deal with issues around forced marriages. We deal with issues around arbitrary divorce and lack of maintenance. And the result is that we have all these children. If you look at the drug problems, if you look at the lack of focus among the youth, all of that comes down to family values. So for me, SDG 4 and SDG 5 are the most crucial SDGs. And I keep focusing on that. And that is why I started the SDG challenge. The idea of the challenge is to change the way we've looked at delivering education to girls. What we've done is, from the top, we design programs. What we do with SDG challenge is asking teachers in local primary school settings to come up with ideas for how we can deliver safe and in an economical way, safe education to the marginalized and disenfranchised girls in rural areas of Africa. We will take all the entries. I'm working with the Queen's University Canada in my capacity as chairman of the advisory board of 1 million teachers. And we'll take all these entries, have the Queen's University Department of Education assess them, and choose 10 from across the whole of Africa. We choose only 10 winners. Work with the winners on, there'll be a small prize money of $500, but work with each of the winners to package, to improve, to develop a plan, to see how we can scale up. And then at the end of 1 year, because the program actually starts today, it was launched the 1st of October. And hopefully by 30th of September next year, I hope to have a big dinner where we raise an endowment fund and unveil the 10 winners which have been packaged. And the idea of the fund is to provide the finance for upscaling that. Now, the first benefit for the teacher who wins is that his village or his area gets the children in that village educated using that innovation, and then we scale it up to other areas across Africa. And we hope to reach as many young children, young girls as possible with that.
All right, thank you, sir. Second question. You are one of the few people in Nigeria who have held the highest positions in private sector, government, and traditional institutions. Given your vast experience across these three areas, what are the top 3 issues that seem to be common across these 3 areas which are a hindrance to nation building?
It's a bit difficult to say because the 3 areas are rather different, and each of them seems to face a different set of problems. I think Dr. Kolade has spoken about values, and that's a problem because I've had the experience of working in the private sector, which is really driven by merit and competition. The shortcoming of the private sector, of course, is that there's this very strong focus on short-term profits for shareholders, and that can sometimes be at the expense of the wider society. Now, the public service is supposed to be different. But if you ask me, from my experience, what are the biggest drawbacks? Certainly in the public sector, where I think you have the greatest positive or negative impact of decisions. The first is the need to build institutions. What I find is that in many, with the politicians, there is this personalization of institutions. So we do have the institutions, we do have the legal structures, we do have the laws, but individuals tend to think that these institutions are there to serve them. And now whether you're dealing with at the level of the governor or the level of the president or at the level of, there's this sense, okay, that the institutions are there to serve whoever is the chief executive. And that is the biggest problem that you have. When you begin to undermine institutions. I mean, we pay lip service to them, we talk about them, but I mean, look at the state houses of assembly, look at the state commissioners, look at the ministries. It's almost as if everything is there at the service of an individual, and this, I think, is what destroys the civil servants and those who run the institutions do not help themselves. So this is the first. We need to understand what are institutions, what do they exist for, what are the rules governing them, and how do we respect those rules, and how do we abide by those rules. It is those institutions that keep politicians in check. We could talk about the police, the judiciary, the press, okay, the traditional institutions. These are all institutions. They are not there to serve individuals. They're there to operate within a certain collage of rules and regulations. So this is the first. We need to build institutions and not individuals. The second problem, and this is more in the public sector and the private sector, is obviously a general lack of a de-emphasis of merit in our institutions. You can never have a good system that's not run by good people. And this is not something that we can blame on one. Take our constitution. I've been saying this over and over again. Our constitution says you must have a minister from every state. But it does not say anything about the qualifications of a minister. It does not say that the minister must be qualified and competent to do the particular job he's given. So if you take a minister from Kano, it doesn't matter. He could be the most uneducated human being. So long as he's from Kano, you tick that box. You have a minister from Kano. And there's nothing concerned. Even though you have a structure, he's supposed to go through screening. We have seen enough people go through screening. When you watch the screening, you say, this man is not going to be confirmed. And then he's confirmed unanimously. Okay, so the result of putting in ministers or commissioners who are either not qualified or who are not qualified for the particular role that they are given is that the entire country suffers because they cannot deliver. Okay, the third thing, I think, and if you ask for three things in the public service, and I've seen something wonderful. I haven't seen the results, but I think just a few weeks ago, there was a ministerial retreat that was aimed at assessing the performance of ministers. And I do hope that there was an assessment. I do hope that the results will be published. The reality is we need to have, just like in the private sector, an assessment. What are the when someone is appointed to a public office, whether it's a permanent secretary or a commissioner or a minister, what are the expectations from that person? What are the deliverables? And there must be a periodic assessment of what it is, and that should be public and transparent. So if we complain that we don't have power, there's a minister of power. If we complain that a road has not been completed, I mean, if you're building a road from point A to point B, and it's been on for 6 years, it's not been completed, there was somebody who was supposed to complete that road. The road is not supposed to build itself. Who holds those people accountable? What are the consequences for not completing? What do you need to do to remain in an office? Is it to deliver or to just be loyal? And I think, for me, the more we're able to focus on these things, on the fact that at the end of the day, we are there to serve the people, and we only deserve to remain there if we provide that service. The more we recognize that, the better we will run the public service. In the private sector, honestly, my experience, maybe because I worked in the banking system, is that it's basically a system driven by merit. I mean, we had targets, we had to achieve, we had to deliver. We were not driven by ethnic or religious sentiments, which seem to affect a lot of our politics. But there is the problem of being so obsessed with your profitability and so afraid of losing profits that sometimes there's a complete disconnect between the interests of the private sector and the interests of the wider society. And these are issues that we need to look at.
All right, sir. Now, let me ask you this. During the Occupy Nigeria protests, you famously said that this government can continue paying subsidy till 2015, it will come down. But the next government will be saddled with a debt burden it cannot maintain. Now, that seems to have come to pass. So looking into your crystal ball today, we want to ask you, what are the top 3 things we need to do today to avoid a crisis for the next government?
Well, the first thing is, as a result of COVID, and because the economy has been brought to its knees anyway, I think Nigeria has finally come around to being realistic. We were paying billions of dollars in so-called subsidy, and as I always say, it was not a subsidy, it was a hedge. It was a big scam. It's been going on for 20, 30 years, and honestly, we complain about the economic situation we're in today, but there is nothing that surprises me. I think if we're honest with ourselves, anyone who studied economics could see that this was where we're going to end up. And this has been something that we could see as far back as 10 years ago, and not just with this government, with the previous government, and then it's continued for some time with this administration, and we've said that. Now, what has happened is that in the last few months, this government has started instituting certain reforms that if we continue along those lines, okay, we begin to see the light. I mean, now, yes, removal of fuel subsidies is one, the adjustments in electricity tariffs is another. But, you know, fundamentally, look at NNPC. This government has, for the first time in more than a decade, published audited accounts of NNPC for 2018. Now, we may not like what we see in terms of the spending by NAPIMS and NPDC, but at least, and this is what we've been calling for, let us have some visibility on what happens inside that big monolith. So the transparency, increased transparency in the oil sector, increased transparency in the energy sector, these are things that need to be done. The Minister of Finance has just been voted, I think, the best finance minister in Africa, and for good reason. This is someone who has been trying to manage the finances of the government in an extremely difficult situation. Collapsed oil prices, very low tax revenues, pressures on the exchange rate, okay, high rates of inflation, extreme poverty, and yet managed to keep this country from actually going totally bankrupt. So these are reforms that need to be pushed. We need to help. We need to understand that the government does not have the balance sheet to continue with the Father Christmas situation that we've had over the last decade or so. I wish we had done this earlier, but we're here now, and this is being done, and we need to commend that, and we need to encourage the government to continue. So this is the first thing. The second thing is to go back to asking, how did we end up here? How did we end up with an economy that is so totally monocultural? How can we go back to diversifying this economy? And one way to do this is to continue eliminating the avenues for rent seeking. When people understand that the way to make money is to produce real goods and services, build up small and medium enterprises, build up manufacturing companies, provide services, we begin to encourage the movement of capital into real production. We have to get out of what Karl Marx called this stage of primitive accumulation and actually move into proper capitalism. And the third thing, which is, I think, extremely important, is we need to focus on our human capital. It's human beings that build countries. We've got 200 million Nigerians, about more than half of them are under the age of 20. In the next 20 years, you're going to have more than 100 million Nigerians between the ages of 20 and 40. Now, that is more than the population of Germany. the third largest economy in the world. If you don't educate these young people, if you don't give them the skills, if you don't have an economy, how are you going to accommodate them? The problems of today will be nothing compared to the problems Nigeria is going to face in the next 20 years. So as we invest in broadband technology, as we invest in solar panels for power, we need to tie that to microfinance. We need to tie that to financial literacy. We need to get people to know how to use the internet. You don't just give someone broadband so that they can take the telephone and make phone calls. You give them broadband so that they can use technology to produce, to innovate. And they can't do that without the skills. So investment in education around IT, extremely important. Coding, robotics, programming, that is the future. We're heading to the fourth industrial revolution, and that is the only way we're going to move very fast and move people out of poverty. These are three things I think we need to do.
All right, thank you. We can't let you go without answering this question, which will be our last one. Now, the ethno-religious intolerance in the country has reached alarming proportions. Diamond Jubilee presents an opportunity to remind ourselves of the need to forge a social contract that transcends this. What will be your message to Nigerians concerning this ethno-religious crisis we are faced with?
It's not so much Nigerians, but the Nigerian elite. The reality is the whole politics of identity in Nigeria, the whole ethnic and religious politics in Nigeria is something that is, we do have identities, but the construction of opposing identities is a political process. It's basically the Nigerian elite competing among itself for a share of the national cake. I don't think that the people who say they're fighting for Hausa or Yoruba or Igbo among Nigerians are really interested. When they get there, at the end of the day, it's about them and their families. There's nobody out there that is really representing North or South or East. They claim to be. You look out there, you see. When you look at the cabinet, you look at. In the history of Nigeria, there has never been a government that did not have people from all over the country. So the first thing to recognize is that we must get away from this sense that holding political office is what makes you representative of a people. Okay, that's the first thing. Personally, I think from my own life experience, these are things I don't understand. I was 8 years old when I was taken to a boarding Catholic school in Kaduna. And from there, at the age of 11, I came to King's College. So for me, I have always grown up as a Nigerian. My friends are from all over the country. I've never thought of people as a Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa or Fulani. Look, I'm living in Lagos. Most of my friends are in Lagos. I don't know. I find it very difficult when I listen to people go on with their stereotypes, when I hear people create monsters out of people because they are of a different faith or a different ethnicity. Because I have lived in Nigeria long enough to know that you've got wonderful Nigerians from every ethnic group, from every religion. You've also got very useless, very horrible, very detestable human beings, okay, from every ethnic group and every religion. And we need to first of all understand that. We need to be able to, and this is, again, it goes back to our constitution. It goes back to the way we have set ourselves up. Why is it more important that you have a minister from every seat than that you have ministers who can deliver? Why? We should have federal character, but why is federal character always pursued at the expense of merit and competence? So what are our national values? Are we a country that respects merit? Are we a country that rewards performance? Are we a country that places the people at the heart of? When people talk about being marginalized, for example, if you ask them what do you mean by marginalized, they'll look at the composition of ministers or political offices. When you go down to the masses and you say, okay, who are the people who are poorest? Where do you have the highest level numbers of out-of-school children? Where do you have the highest levels of malnutrition? Where do you have the highest levels of unemployment? Where do you have the lowest per capita? Because that is really what affects the vast majority of Nigerians. Then you begin to know who are the truly marginalized people. And you'll be surprised to know that those who have been, quote unquote, marginalizing others politically, if you look at political office, actually come from the areas where the people are the most marginalized when you look at real economic indicators. So if there's any proof that being from one part of the country in government does not necessarily translate into a better life for that part of the country, it is Nigeria. So the more we get out of this almost juvenile obsession with where is this person from, what religion does he have, and actually begin to ask, if you want to be the president of Nigeria, if you want to be a minister, if you want to be a governor, what are your qualifications? What do you bring to the table? What do you have to offer the people? It starts from and it's not just Nigeria. I listened to Trump and Biden, and we all know it was a horrible debate and a disgrace. But I've seen debates in Nigeria for people trying to be governors, people trying to be president. We never hear things about, what am I going to do for Nigerian women? Look, we have a country where more than half of the Nigerian population is female. How many women do we have in the Senate? How many do we have in the House of Reps? How many do we have in state houses of assembly? How many governors do we have? These are issues that we need to ask. Now, if you don't have women in decision-making processes, how do you deal with the girl child? How do you deal with development? Why can't our constitution provide, for example, for a maximum of 60 or 70% of ministers from one gender? That compels everybody to have at least 30% of women or men in the cabinet. And you begin to have diversity. Why is our diversity only state diversity? Why is it only ethnic diversity? Why don't we talk about diversity by gender? Why don't we talk about diversity by age? Why must our governments be dominated by 60, 70-year-old men? No young people, no women. And this is the 21st century. You're looking at the 21st century and you have a generation of people, a generation like me, who are now dinosaurs, who don't even know how to use computers properly. Now, if you take my son and his generation, they are far more prepared for the 21st century, for the Industrial Revolution, than my generation. How many of them have been given the opportunity to participate in the formulation of policy and the implementation of policy? Now, these are the kinds of conversations we have. Rather than saying, oh, we don't have enough Hausa people, or enough Yoruba people, or enough Igbo people in government, where we don't have enough young people. We don't have enough women. We don't have enough IT experts in the government. And these are the kinds of questions I think we need to ask. And when we take away, and I suppose for me, I will remain grateful. I keep telling to people, I keep telling everyone that, yes, I'm a Muslim, I'm a northerner. At my very young age, I was taken care of by Catholic nuns in a Catholic school. They allowed me to practice my faith, and they showered me with love. Nobody can come and tell me that Catholics are bad. No one. Because I've lived with them. Now, I'm not saying that there are no bad Catholics, but nobody can tell me that somebody is bad because they're Catholic. Because I saw love in St. Anne's. And I saw love. I mean, my best friends, to this day, are my friends from King's College, many of whom are not from my region or my faith. So I don't understand it. That is the reality. I don't. And I think that anyone who manipulates ethnicity and religion is just doing it for a selfish reason, and we need to get out of that. We need to call them out.
Thank you so much, sir. You spoke to the heart of what we are trying to achieve in this meeting. I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.